Lucas and Portia work together to save Drew, despite his recent actions. Even while she tries to save Drew, husband Curtis meets with Jordan to proclaim their marriage is over. During the procedure, Portia becomes distracted at a critical point, and things seem bad for the patient. Drew dies but is revived by Portia. Did Nina shoot Drew? When it becomes evident that Willow is a major suspect, Nina gives her daughter a bogus alibi. Willow quickly understands Nina provided both of them with an alibi, which, if proved as a lie, will reveal they are both suspects. Willow grows skeptical of her mother and wonders if she is the shooter. Kai and Trina erase evidence. Kai agrees with Trina that they should erase any evidence linking Portia and them to Drew. They set fire to the documents, only to be interrupted by Stella, who smelled smoke. They fabricate an excuse, and Anna invites Kai to meet her and answer a few questions. Stella, alone with Trina, suggests that Curtis attempted to kill Drew in order to protect the family. Where was Alexis? When Dante arrives and wants to discuss about an attempted murder, Ava and Christina freak out. But he's actually there to ask Alexis if she has an alibi for when Drew was shot. Being a lawyer, Alexis refuses to answer questions unless her own counsel is present. After Dante leaves, Alexis tells Ava and Christina that she spent the evening with their guest, Rick, and asks them to be her alibi. Martin meets with Lulu and tells her, in hushed tones, that he has a story that will elevate her to the position of Port Charles's leading investigative journalist. Martin feels that by arresting Drew, Lulu would help put an end to the Stella probe. They are interrupted by the news of Drew's shooting. Michael's got a secret. Tracy informs Brooke, Lynn, and Michael that they must do all possible to keep Monica from learning of Drew's condition, since she is simply too delicate to survive it. When Brooke Lynn leaves, Michael's grandmother admits that she is fully aware that he, too, was at Drew's apartment this evening. Tracy goes on to urge that Michael obtain an alibi, saying that if he gets involved, Monica will be devastated. Michael, on the other hand, tries to find the woman he was conversing with at the pub in order to back up his purported alibi, but he doesn't go very far. According to General Hospital spoilers, Congressman Crooked was shot twice in the back in his own home. Someone does not like him very much. So, who performed the dirty deed with Drew Kane? As Anna Devane stated, the list is lengthy. Let us go deeper into this mystery to uncover the clues and determine who gets a finger pointed at them. Did Willow shoot Drew? Willow Tate has got to be toward the top of the suspect list. He completely screwed her over. Willow has snapped more times than we can count, most of them due to something Drew did. In the days preceding up to the crime, half of PC publicly stated their desire to kill Drew. Phew, Anna has a big job ahead of her. Willow was absent from GH for a period of time when Drew was killed, which added gasoline to the fire. However, soap operas tend to throw out a red herring in these instances, so we'll mark Willow's name on the list with a question mark. Did Willow pump Drew full of lead? In another diversion, Kai Taylor left his prints on a baseball bat, directing attention to him in the aftermath. He is innocent, but his presence in Drew's residence must be explained, which is a tricky scenario. Portia Robinson is also a suspect, but how can she divulge her alibi, sleeping with colleague Isaiah Gannon, without jeopardizing her life? Which gets us back to the original question: who went out in the pouring rain to see justice done? How about Nina Reeves or Michael Quartermain? Who shot Drew? Michael is unquestionably sus because he returned home to the Q house soaked within the murder period window. There's also Stella Henry, Jen Sidwell, and his mini-me kid Marco Rios, as well as Curtis and Sonny Corinthos. We have a wacky theory. There were two shooters. There were two bullets. Therefore, why weren't there two shooters? Tell us your thoughts on this scenario and who you think shot Drew. Make sure to stay up to date on everything happening at General Hospital right now. Come back regularly for the most recent GH updates, news, and spoilers. Get comfortable and receive access to the best soap knowledge on the internet. The city was a maze of darkness, the streets slippery with rain and secrets. The search for Drew's shooter had taken over the precinct, the media, and the hearts of those who knew him, or believed they did. Drew wasn't a saint, but he didn't deserve to be shot in the chest and left bleeding in an alley behind the old jazz club on 4th Street. The case began with a single act of assault, which should have been resolved within days. But weeks had passed, and the spark had spread like wildfire, destroying trust, relationships, and truths no one wanted to face. Detective Lena Carver was at the center of everything. She'd been on the force for 12 years, her badge a shield against the city's tumult, but it did nothing to protect her from the uncertainties that plagued her late at night. Drew had been her partner once, when they were both young and yearning for justice in a world that seemed to dismiss the idea. They'd grown apart over the years, different precincts, different lives, but his death drew her back into his orbit, a gravitational force she couldn't shake. Everyone was aware of the case's personal nature. That's why Captain Ruiz hesitated to give it to her, his gaze hardening as he gave her the paperwork. "Don't let this break you, Lena," he had said. She nodded, but they could tell she was already fractured. The investigation began with the typical steps. Investigating the crime scene, questioning witnesses, and pursuing leads that led nowhere. The alley was a dead end in every way, dark, small, and surrounded with overflowing trash that reeked of decay. There were no cameras or visible fingerprints, only a single round casing indicating that the shooter used a .45 caliber handgun, which is as ubiquitous as dirt in this city. The jazz club attendees heard the shot but saw nothing, their recollections clouded by liquor and music. The bartender, a wiry man named Sal with a scar over his left brow, claimed he was restocking the cellar when it happened. Lena did not buy it. Sal's eyes wandered too quickly, his hands fiddling with a rag while he answered her queries. But he stuck to his tale, and without evidence, she was forced to let it go. For now. The first deception came from Drew's wife, Elise. She was a frail creature with pale skin and shaky hands, sitting in their tight living room, surrounded by images of a past that now felt like a ghost story. Elise insisted Drew had been home the night before the shooting, that they had eaten dinner, watched a movie, and gone to bed. However, the coroner's report placed Drew's death time at 2:17 a.m., and his phone record showed a call to an unlisted number at 1:45 a.m., from a location far from their snug brownstone. Lena pushed her softly at first, then harder. "Where was he, Elise? Who did he meet?" Elise's tears flowed quickly, her voice shaking as she insisted she didn't know. But her eyes betrayed her, flashing with shame, terror, or with both. Lena exited the house with a knot in her stomach, knowing Elise was hiding something significant. The precinct was alive with theories. Some claimed it was a random heist gone awry, yet Drew's wallet remained in his pocket, cash intact. Others speculated about a gang hit, referring to the increase in cartel activities downtown. Lena didn't buy it either. Drew had worked in narcotics for years before being switched to white-collar crime 6 months ago. If this was a cartel job, it was sloppy, and cartels are not known for being messy. No, it was personal. Someone wanted Drew dead, and they made sure to get close enough to do it properly. On day 11, Marcus, a street vendor selling hot dogs 2 blocks from the jazz club, claimed seeing a man in a black hoodie lingering near the alley that night. Marcus was cagey, his sentences clipped, as if he was scared to say too much. Lena leaned closer, her voice low but steady. "You are not in trouble, Marcus. Just tell me what you saw." He described the man as tall and broad-shouldered, with a snake tattoo coiling up his neck. It wasn't much, but it helped to restrict the suspect pool. Lena cross-referenced the description with the department's database and discovered Victor Kane, a low-level enforcer for the DiMauro family, a syndicate that had been silent for years but never disappeared. Victor had a criminal record longer than Lena's arm, including assault, extortion, and a weapons possession conviction. And the snake tattoo? That was his calling card. Finding Victor was not easy. He'd fallen to the earth. Disappearing through the city seems like smoke. Lena and her team, Detectives Patel and Torres, worked around the clock, gathering information from informants and questioning known acquaintances. Patel, a wiry man with a knack for patterns, went into Victor's finances and discovered a series of payments from a modest but consistent offshore account, routed through a shell business. Torres, younger and brasher, hit the streets relying on every informant he knew. Torres eventually had a lead. Victor had been observed at the Rusty Anchor, a dingy pub in the industrial neighborhood. Lena did not wait for backup. She got her coat and revolver and left. The Rusty Anchor was a hole, filled with cigarette smoke and misery. Victor was there, nursing a beer at a corner booth, his tattoo visible from under his collar. Lena approached, her heart hammering but her expression calm. "Victor Kane," she replied, slipping into the booth across from him. His eyes sprang up, cold and unreadable. Who is asking? Lena showed her badge and kept her voice steady. We need to talk about Drew Harper. Victor curled his lip but could not dispute it. Instead, he leaned back and tapped the table. Don't know no Drew Harper, he muttered, but the lie was weak, and his eyes showed a glimmer of recognition. She pressed harder, setting out the evidence. The shell casing, the vendor's description, and the timing. Victor did not flinch, but his stillness spoke volumes. Lena knew she was near, but she also knew Victor wouldn't crack under pressure. He had gone through too many interrogations and knew how to play the game. She needed something concrete to anchor him to the alley. That is when Taurus called. They discovered a burner phone in a garbage a block from the crime scene. Wiped clean but with a single readable call log. It matched Drew's unlisted phone number. The call lasted 3 minutes right before the shooting. Lena's instincts told her Victor was on the other end of the phone call, but proving it was another story. Back in the precinct, the case took a gloomy turn. Elise arrived unannounced, face pale, hands clutching a manila envelope. I found this in Drew's things, she said, passing it to Lena. Inside were grainy images shot from a distance of Drew meeting with a man dressed in a suit outside a warehouse. The man was Anthony DiMauro, the leader of the DiMauro family. The pictures were taken a week before the shooting. Lena's thoughts raced. Drew had been working white-collar crime, but these photographs indicated that he was looking into something bigger, something related to the DiMauros. Had he played both sides? Was he dirty? The thought made Lena's chest constrict, yet she couldn't let it go. Not yet. Elise's words interrupted her thoughts. There's more, she explained, her voice scarcely audible. She gave Lena a USB disk. I found this as well. I did not look at it. I couldn't. Lena drove, her fingers brushing over Elise's shaking ones. Returning to her workstation, she plugged it in, her heart sinking as the data loaded. There are dozens of audio recordings, each identified with the date and initials. Drew's quiet but anxious voice filled her headphones as she scheduled meetings, discussed money and mentioned names, Victor Kane, Anthony DiMauro, and others she didn't recognize. Drew had not been dirty, she realized. He had been working covertly to develop a case against the DiMauros. But someone had found out. Somebody had betrayed him. The next falsehood came from Sal, the bartender. Lena returned to the jazz club, equipped with the CDs. She cornered him in the storage, the air thick with the odor of stale beer. You lied to me, Sal, she added, playing a recording of Drew's voice discussing a meeting at the club. Sal's face crumpled, and his hands shook as he attempted to light a cigarette. I didn't realize he'd be killed, he stuttered. All I did was pass a message. They paid me to remain silent. Lena's jaw tightened. Who paid you? Sal hesitated, then murmured a name. Claire. Lena froze. Claire was Drew's sister. A lawyer with a good reputation and a strong loyalty to her brother. Why is she involved? Lena followed Claire down at her downtown workplace, which was a sleek high-rise. Claire was polished, her suit spotless, and her smile rehearsed. But when Lena mentioned the recordings, her smile faded. I don't know what you're talking about, Claire replied, but her tone was too sharp and defensive. Lena laid down the evidence. Sal's confession, the images, and the USB drive. Claire's calm broke, and her fists gripped the edge of her desk. I was protecting him, she finally admitted, her voice breaking. Drew got in over his head. The DiMauros realized he was a cop. I attempted to warn him and get him out, but he did not listen. I provided them the meeting time. I assumed they'd merely terrify him. Lena's gut clenched. Claire hadn't fired the gun, but she'd set Drew up and delivered him to Victor Kane on a silver platter. The betrayal felt like a knife, twisting deeper with each word. However, there was no time to process it. Patel rushed into the office short of breath. The burner phone, he explained. We tracked the call. It was not Victor. It was Anthony DiMauro personally. Lena's mind raced. Victor was a pawn and a distraction. Anthony was the true player and he was still out there. That night, the final blow was delivered. Lena was in the precinct, reviewing the recordings, when Torres summoned her to the evidence locker. You need to see this, he continued, his voice tense. When she arrived, her heart stopped. The USB drive was gone. The images, the burner phone, and the shell casing are all missing. The security camera saw a person in a hooded jacket sliding into the locker, but his face was concealed. Lena recognized the person before Torres mentioned their name. Claire, he muttered. She torched the evidence, the remaining links linking Anthony DeMauro to Drew's murder. Lena stood in the empty locker, the weight of everything crashing down. The lies, secrets, betrayal, it was all too much. But she wasn't finished. Not yet. Drew demanded justice, and she was willing to tear the city apart to get it. Even if it meant confronting the DeMauros alone. Even if this meant losing herself in the process. The search for Drew's shooter was not over. It was only beginning. Drew never saw it coming. He was coming out of the dimly lighted lane below the docks, his mind muddled with thoughts of everything going on in Port Charles, when all of a sudden commotion broke out around him. The piercing sound of gunfire broke the calm, booming off the metal canisters stacked nearby. At first he felt there was only one shooter and one threat. But within seconds he knew the truth was considerably more terrifying. There were two distinct snipers, both targeting him and determined to ensure he did not escape alive. The first bullet brushed his shoulder, blasting through his jacket and into the wall behind him. He spun around, heart racing, attempting to regain his bearings. But then came the second shot, this time from the opposite side, which embedded itself in the wooden crate next him. He ducked for cover, his breathing labored, his instincts urging him to go, fight, and survive. Drew couldn't shake the mounting suspicion that this wasn't random, but rather personal. He grabbed a dropped metal pipe and crouched low behind a stack of crates, trying to hear footsteps. He could detect a faint rustle of movement, one group coming from the left and another circling around from the right. They worked together but kept their distance, covering both exits and trapping him like prey. Drew clenched his jaw, aware that his alternatives were limited. He had two options: stay hidden and wait for a miracle, or flee and risk being killed. He considered ringing for backup, but his phone had dropped out of his pocket following the first shot and skidded several feet away. Crawling toward it would leave him vulnerable. Every second felt heavier than the last, and the noises of the shooters approaching made his heart pound in his ears. Then, just as he regained his composure and looked around the corner, another shot rang out, slicing across his ribcage. He suppressed a yell, the burning pain shooting down his side, but he didn't have the luxury of collapsing. Drew gritted his teeth when he saw a short path between two cargo containers that led to the dock's edge. If he could make it there, he might be able to dive into the water and lose them, giving himself some time. He knelt lower, waiting for a brief gap in shooting before bolting. The moment he moved, both shooters released a new burst of bullets, sparks leaping off metal and wood splintering around him. His lungs burned as he raced, each step heavier than the last one, but adrenaline kept him going. Then Drew's instincts shouted again. Something was wrong. He dropped to the ground just as another bullet flew past his head. But this time he discovered something shocking. The trajectory was not aimed at him. One shooter had just fired at another.